Welcome to Focus on Education. I'm Keith Fillauer, Chairman of the Oak Ridge Board of Education, and with me this evening is Angie Agle, a member of the Oak Ridge Board of Education, and we are each other's guests tonight. As many of you may know, we both chose not to run for re-election after a combined over 40 years of serving on the Oak Ridge Board of Education. So we thought tonight we would talk about some of our experiences. Hard to talk about over 40 years in just a short period of time, but we're going to give it a best shot we can. Let me take this opportunity to thank Mr. Dave Kolodny and his students over the years who have made this show possible, and the Oak Ridge Board of Education with its returning members and 2 new members, which you'll meet in the next show. We'll continue this show hopefully in years to come. So with that said, Angie, I'm ready.
All right, so the first question is, what encouraged you to first run for the board?
Well, I had no thoughts about running for the Board of Education, to be honest with you. After a teaching career of 31 years, and my teaching career ended, I really didn't have an idea of what was next until one evening I was sitting on my front porch and the current chairman of the Board of Education came by, John Smith, and said, we have one of the board members who's moving. Her husband has been relocated. Would you be interested? And I said, well, let me think about it. And he, of course, told me that the Board of Education only met once a month, which I knew was not the case. And I thought about it, and I said, you know, this would be perhaps a good transition from being a classroom teacher, moving on, if I can get elected and be in that position, to a board member. Maybe I can use some of the skills that I had as a classroom teacher and transfer those over to being a board member and that relationship with the teachers in the school district. So that's why I chose to do it.
Well, and of course that first year when there was an open seat, so it was an odd number or an even numbered year when there are not normally board elections, I wanted to run too. That was a very nice civil campaign.
Yes, it was.
Because
I think we even helped each other at the end of the election
pick up signs.
Yes, I think we did.
But part of my reason is I had probably the world's best civics teacher, which prompted an interest in government, particularly local government, because to me, the local government is the one that affects my life the most. And since I had 4 kids in 6 years, I think there was a year that before you were on the board, they were talking about eliminating recess for elementary school children, and the board members were saying, well, they still have outdoor PE, and I'm thinking, no, you cannot keep my kid in a classroom all day and then send them home to me. That's not gonna work.
Yeah.
And that's when I started thinking, okay, none of these people on the board have really young children. They all have older children or their kids are grown, so I think it's time for somebody with kids at the beginning to run. So I lost that first year, but I won the second year and have stuck with it because this school system served me very well. It has served my kids very well. I want it to continue serving all the kids that live here.
And probably some of our best times on the board was when we had our kids in school here because we could find out a lot of the real information.
Mm-hmm. We knew what was going on before anybody ever sent an email.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. You know, over the years that we've been on the board, there have been a lot of changes in our school district, a lot. So the question to you is, what are some of the changes that you have seen as a board member that have tremendously impacted our school district?
That's a hard question because there's quite a few. The ones that come immediately to mind are rebuilding the high school, because we have people coming from all over the state that want to see this, and then they go home and they build a gym that's just like ours, or they try to build science labs that are just like ours. And what other board members say when they tour this school is like, oh, how do we get that? So that is a big one. I think going to one-to-one laptops was a big change. It's not one that everybody is happy with, but I think it equalizes schooling for the students more than anything we could have done. Because before, a teacher would assign a project. Well, little Johnny has a laptop and high-speed internet, a color printer, and all this stuff, but then Jimmy doesn't have any of those things. So how can they be equalized? Now they are. So I think that was a big one. The third thing is moving to the modified schedule, which scared me a little bit at first, cutting down to a 6-week summer. That just doesn't seem very long. But what we have found is, both for students and staff, to have those 2-week breaks, it gives them time to do makeup work if they need to. It gives them time to take a week off and go on vacation, and then still have a week at home to rest up, catch up on homework, that kind of thing. And I think both students and staff now love that schedule. And when a kid gets behind, it does give them an opportunity to catch up before the year's over.
I would agree. You know, my son was a student here, and I guess your daughter was.
All 4 of them.
When the construction was going on.
All 4 of them.
All 4.
Sarah was the only one that came into a finished school. So the
Right.
older
The others
3
right. Okay.
all lived through the construction.
So what was interesting about that, we were able to do all of this construction and didn't miss a day of school. I can remember my son Parks coming home and saying, well, it took me a little bit longer to get to class today because I started going the way I went yesterday, but they had big barriers up and I had to find another way. And if I remember correctly, I think we did have some grace time for kids to get to class. But that was, I thought, just amazing that we could do that. I think one of the changes that I see that I feel like is playing a very important impact in our students are our curriculum changes. As an example, where Secret, as you remember, where Secret City Academy is now, that used to be our CTE program, our technology program. That's why that building was constructed. And then the state decided that the path for our students was going to be all students are going to college. And all of that went away. Well, we obviously were able to get back to where we needed to be, and our CTE program now and the opportunities that kids have that they weren't having within our curriculum, from aviation to welding to auto body, some of that we had, our Wildcat manufacturing and all of that is just opening up opportunities. As we heard some kids when we were visiting the high school talk about how that has had an impact on what their careers might be. So I think the curriculum change has been a big thing. Not really, well, I guess a change too, through ESG and the money that we receive there, what we've been able to do to some of our buildings to improve them has been important. And there have been a lot of changes. You know, some things do stay consistent, but as we both can attest to, education is an ever-changing item. Hopefully always for the good. As board members, there are things that we have to deal with that come our way that if we were making the decisions up front, we probably wouldn't. But We're very fortunate to be in a school district that is progressive, a school district that is supported by the community, and the opportunities we can give our students is just outstanding.
It is.
So I'm up next, right? So the next question, what do you think lies ahead for not just Oak Ridge High School? You can be specific if you wish, or what lies ahead for public education?
Well, I'm going to focus on Oak Ridge first, but one of the things that we're going to have to do, because our student population is growing and the area where they live is expanding, we're going to have to build a new elementary school. So that will be one of the things that has to change. One of the things I would like to see going forward is to expand the CCTE program, because what we're seeing already from the students in that, it's not just for the kids who aren't going to college. There are kids who go into welding or wildcat manufacturing that are going to college. Many of them major in engineering. They will make better engineers because they've already done the hands-on part. So they already know, I make a design, I send it to the machine, this is what went wrong, so I need to modify my design. If they know that ahead of time, they make better engineering students in college, and they will be better engineers when they graduate because they did it kind of backwards.
I would agree wholeheartedly with what you've just said. As I look ahead and we talk about growth, this is going to be a big decision for the next board and for our community to move forward. We went for a long time in Oak Ridge where our growth was flatlined. Mm-hmm. And now, for many reasons, we're seeing that growth. Can remember the time when we ran one bus out to the preserve to pick up everybody.
Pick up 3 kids.
And which was everybody at that time. And now we're running 3 buses to pick up everybody. So that growth is moving west. Our buildings are also aging. Robertsville Middle, because of what we were able to do, as I mentioned earlier, looks almost like a new school. Even though people still refer to Linden as New Linden, it's a number of years old, and we've got to take some steps to figure out, is that building viable, or what, are we going to, as you indicated, are we going to need to build a new elementary school, which is probably where we're leaning to do that. I think, and I was thinking you might go there, legislatively, schools are going to be faced with some issues ranging from the voucher bill, which will be back in discussion with our legislators this coming session, how that may or may not impact the Oak Ridge schools, but that's going to be a topic that we're going to have to be concerned about. As we saw in Oak Ridge this year for the Board of Education, it was a partisan race. That's something that we're going to have to take a look at. As you and I both have spoken out against, a person running for the Board of Education does not need to run for the Board of Education based on their political affiliation. But that's going to be something the schools are going to have to face, because that may indicate who runs or does not run for the Board of Education. So that will be a topic. School funding is always a topic that can change the path and direction for the schools. That remains to be seen when our legislature gets there. We had a conversation today about our library and books that can or cannot be in the library. That's going to be a topic of discussion in the legislature. So, as always, what lies ahead for the schools is going to be impacted by what our legislators say or don't say. So, with that being said, we're going to take a very short break, and we will be right back with Focus on Education. Welcome back to Focus on Education. This evening, myself and Angie Agle are talking about some of our experiences that we've had collectively over the last 40 years as members of the Oak Ridge Board of Education. Our term will actually be ending on November 18th, and that will be our last meeting as members of the board. That doesn't mean we're going away anywhere. Both of us will still be active and supportive of public education, but we thought this evening we would just kind of recap 40 years in a very short period of time. So we've been having some discussion about those years, so let's get back to it.
Well, we have new board members that will be sworn in Monday night after our meeting. What advice would you have for those new board members?
We can probably have a lot of advice right here that we could give. So I'll give some and let you give some as well. I think first off, they have to understand there's going to be a learning curve. What they anticipate as a board member, I would almost bet is not what they're going to find out that a board member does. So be prepared for a learning curve. Rely on the board members that are experienced and learn from them. Get to know as quickly as you can as many people that are in administrative positions in central office, starting first and foremost with the superintendent. Get to know those people, develop a relationship with them. Understand that as a board member, you have 3 responsibilities. You have 1 employee, that's the superintendent. You don't hire and fire teachers. You have responsibility for approving a budget, and you have responsibility for approving and supporting the policies of the Board of Education, and understand those policies. I think also it's important as a board member, I would tell them, be as active as you possibly can in each of our schools. It will be an impossible task to try to attend everything that goes on in our district, but go to as many as you possibly can. You'll get a lot of invitations. You can't accept all of them, but do find your way to try to be in every school above and beyond what we as a board do when we visit the schools and so forth. Attend a Maskers production at the high school. Visit a concert at an elementary school. Attend a field day at one of the schools. But just be involved, because that's where you're going to learn the most about a lot of our schools by doing that. Your turn.
Well, and I would agree, because you hear a lot of things. You'll see it on social media, you hear it out in the community, including some things that you just scratch your head and where did that come from? No, we do not have cat boxes in the schools. Okay? Don't know where that rumor even came from, and it's not just here, it's everywhere.
Right.
But the thing I would say is to start off, listen and learn, because there is a huge learning curve. I know when I was first elected for several months, I didn't say very much at all. And I had friends say, well, you never talk. Why don't you? It's like, well, right now I'm still listening, because I still have a lot to learn about how this works. And I think that is wise. Definitely get to know the superintendent and the assistant superintendents, because they can make your life a lot easier. A lot easier. I mean, how much easier are budgets now than they were 15 years ago?
tremendously easy.
Tremendously.
Yeah.
And that is, it has some to do with revenue to the schools, since we've gotten retail back up and kicking in Oak Ridge, but it has a lot to do with our administrative staff that knows how to find grants for things that we want, that knows how to structure things to achieve the things that we want to achieve without spending too much money. So that would be mine, is listen and learn, and as Keith said, go to as many things in the schools as you can, not just your own child's school, not just the school that's closest to you, but go around and do different things at different schools, because you will learn every time you go into a school. You will see really good things going on that you wouldn't know about otherwise. And these are good things that you want to perpetuate.
I would also add a couple of things. Know your lines of communication. Know who handles what problems, and we all probably have dealt with this. When you get that phone call and say, my student is having problems in Miss So-and-so class. Mm-hmm. Well, what can you help me with? And what we can help that person with is
you first talk to Miss So-and-so,
yes.
And if that does not work, then you speak with the principal, and if that does not work, then you go to administration. And it's only after you've been through those things that you even think about coming to the board, because problems get solved at the lowest level, and that's where they're most likely going to get solved.
I think too, I would tell a new board member, as you are discussing items, number one, don't ever come to a board meeting and surprise the superintendent or other board members. Do your homework in advance. Have the conversation that you need to have with the superintendent prior to that. But when all is said and done, and I think we've done a great job with this, whatever is voted on, however it's voted on, whatever the decision of the board is, that's what the entire board takes with them. And you don't want to leave that board meeting and go out and post on social media, well, I can't understand why so-and-so board member did this because I didn't like this. That's an easy way to splinter the board, and you're there to work collectively, and what the board says and decides collectively is what you support, even though you may not have always agreed with it.
Well, that's one of the things that we've been fortunate with, is that with all the different people we've served with, and you probably know how many, I don't. It's been quite a few different people that have been on the board that we've both worked with. We have always worked collaboratively. We have never let disagreements get in the way of friendship. I would say that we have all been friends,
Yes.
and still are. And it's not the case with all school boards. We have both seen at various conventions that you'll have boards that won't sit together, they won't have dinner together. That's silly. How can you work together if you won't even have dinner and have conversations? So yes, for the board to be, as a whole, to get along and to work collaboratively, no, we're not always going to agree. Sometimes I'm going to vote no. That doesn't mean I'm mad at anybody.
No.
But that's just, I think it works better when everyone works together. And sometimes you will find that you have completely different arguments. I remember this when I was first on the board, and Jenny Richter would make an argument that was completely opposite of my argument, but we both voted the same way. It's like, I think we both learned something tonight. Because that's true. You will learn if you listen. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I would also encourage new board members to take advantage of Tennessee School Board Association, of which we are as a school district a member. They can provide a plethora of information about being a new school board member. In fact, as a new board member, they are asked, or required actually, to attend a new board member work session where they learn a lot of aspects about serving on a board, be responsible to do that, be responsible to take advantage of the other areas that are offered throughout the year, attend the leadership conferences, conventions, our fall district meetings, the legal and legislative workshops that are held. You might not be able to attend them all in one year, but at least get to them at some point in time to do that.
Well, didn't Dan DeGregorio go from level 1 to level 3 or 4 in 1 year?
Yeah, he did.
So he did all his own work.
Work.
But
yes.
Yeah, there are some very good training opportunities. I remember that first budget was mind-blowing because it's not like household budgets. It's not like business budgets. It's a whole different thing, and it takes some getting used to realize that you've got these different categories, and some of them are federal money, and some of them are state money, and some of them are grant money, and you can't just say, oh, well, I want to add 3 teachers. That money has to come from somewhere, so what are you going to cut? And you've said it every year when we do budgets, you can't add something unless you take something out. And that's the truth, unless somebody can grow a money tree.
Yeah, that would be great. You know, I also would add, develop a relationship with our city council members. Mm-hmm. Know who they are, make sure you meet them. Our working relationship with city council right now is probably the best it's ever been. As you and I both know, there were times when it wasn't always like that. And we've worked hard, both the Board of Education and Council, to pull ourselves together, because in reality we're all working for the same goal. And if we don't share and communicate, that's when the trouble begins. Would you ask, if you were still on the board?
Well, I am until Monday.
Well, until Monday. So you can still do this. As a new board member, would you tell them that being a board member is very time consuming?
It depends on the time of year. In December, not so much. In July, not so much. In April, I see the board members more often than I see my husband. And it's not just one meeting once a month. We visit schools. We meet with city council. We have work sessions. It does take some time. It does. But it's a lot of fun. My favorite is the school visits. We were here at Oak Ridge High School this morning. And as I said, you may hear all kinds of crazy things in the community, but you come into the school and you see what's actually going on. And there's so much good going on in these schools that it's uplifting, and it gives you the strength to go on and do some more.
We're getting short on time, so we want to get this last question in for
all
sure.
Right.
You know, serving on the board, at times we do laugh.
Yes, we
do. And as you just said, we do have fun. Some humorous things that have occurred while we've been on the Board of Education.
Maybe we can prevent the new board members from making these same mistakes?
Probably, probably. Hopefully they're listening.
Well, there was one of the silliest things that I have done. It was kind of early on. We were going through the budget, and there were cuts here and cuts there, and nobody wants cuts. But there was one item for the volunteer coordinator. And I said, why do we pay a volunteer? This was the coordinator of volunteers, not a volunteer coordinator.
Well, you know which one I'm going to start out with. We're looking at the agenda, and the next item that we're getting ready to discuss and vote on is a recommendation for a blanket purchase order at Home Depot. And so I asked the question, and it was a considerable amount of money. And
it's probably about $40,000.
About $40,000. And I'm asked the question, why do we need to purchase all these blankets at Home Depot? Well, as I learned, we were not buying blankets. It was a blanket, open-ended, so our maintenance people could go and buy, if they needed nails, they could go and buy the nails. We did not need blankets. So I learned very quick from that. But another thing I did, and you kind of alluded to it in something you said, I had done my homework during the budget time, and I thought I had some really good ideas. And I came and I said, okay, I would like to add, and it wasn't a large amount, I think it was to the Children's Museum, if I remember. I'd like to add $2,000 to the Children's Museum budget where we give them some money. And our finance person spoke up and said, okay, where is that money coming from? And I thought for a minute, and I said, we do have to have that money. Is it not just we can't get it? She said, well, yes, you have an option. You can, as you said, you can cut something out of the budget because it's got to come from somewhere. So I learned that lesson that if you don't have the money to spend, you just can't out of the air pull that money. As you said, it doesn't grow on trees.
No, I'm hoping that somebody will invent a money tree. Yeah. That would be a really sweet thing. But like I said, there is a learning process, and sometimes you have to consider the semantics in the budget, because blanket purchase order, volunteer coordinator.
One other I'll finish with. We were doing, I don't even remember the specifics, but we were working on something, and in the course of what we were doing, there were a couple of motions and so forth, and so I was trying to work as best I could through parliamentary procedure. And I have my phone at that time laying right in front of me, not because I would use it at that time to time the speakers in the public forum. Mm-hmm. And this message pops up, and it's from my son. And
who is better at parliamentary procedure than any of us.
And it simply said, Dad, wrong decision. So, so we have a good time. Well, we're about to run out of time, so as they used to say, I think on 60 Minutes, a final word.
I have enjoyed my 21 and a half years. I'm going to miss it, especially the school visits, because I love seeing the good things that are going on. But it's time for somebody new to take a turn.
And I would agree, it's been an honor to serve on the Board of Education for the reasons that you just indicated. The other board members that we have worked with throughout the years, the people that we've met across the state that have served on other boards, but most importantly, and I was going to say this earlier about what new board members need to focus on, but thought I'd save it to the end, and I know you and I both agree with this, that the reason that we're on this Board of Education and why probably we really chose to do this is because our role is to do what is best for students, to give each student the opportunity to be successful in whatever they want to be, whatever they dream, whatever they want to be successful in. And I hope and know that our new board members will do the same. We have a great school system. We have some of the finest educators in these buildings across the state, across the country, and we have some of the best students anywhere. And you can just look at the successes our students have, not only here at Oak Ridge High School, but as they go on to their career, whatever it might be. So we wish the new board members the best. We're thankful for those who elected us to be in this position, and throughout the course of our time, we've enjoyed hosting and being on Focus on Education. And again, we'll mention that our board member, Laura McLean, will be hosting the next Focus on Education, and she will have as her guests our two newest board members, so you can learn a little bit more about them. So for Ms. Agle and myself, have a great evening. It's been a pleasure.